Hello everybody! I'm going to be making a tutorial today on melodic dubstep. It's not the world's hardest genre, but if you're really trying to make it like sound professional, there's a few secrets to it that I've kind of discovered pretty recently. So I'm gonna play this little track that I've got made here. It's not a full song, but it's gonna be a full song someday. And then I'm going to go into everything that makes it what it is. Oh my god, my dog is having it. Floyd, come here. Come here. Sit. Good girl. Okay, good girl. Stay. Alright. Okay, so in all honesty, there's a lot to this, so I'm probably gonna make this like a series. Yeah, I'll make it a series. Today, let's see, what am I gonna go into today? Let's go into the drums and yeah, let's do the drums for today. Alright, so what we have here, these two groups right here, 11 and 7, are the drum track. Alright, so I'm gonna unfreeze all of this beautiness, and I will... Do I need to unfreeze these? No, I don't. Alright, let's start with the kick, because punchy kick and snare are probably one of the most important parts of actually any dubstep song. It has very little to do with whether or not it's melodic dubstep. You just want good drums. Pretty much anything you make. So I feel like that kick hits pretty goddamn hard. So what I've got going in here, I've got the Cymatics Terror drums for dubstep here. You have the kicks folder, you have full and short. I always use a full kick because the short ones just kind of sound more like a click than an actual like kick drum. So I went and I just scrolled through, you know, but you know, I've got some processing on it, makes it sound even better. So what I have going on in here, just regular old, didn't change anything about the sample. I EQ'd it, I boosted the living shit out of the low end, and don't worry, you can afford to do this. Normally I would not recommend doing that, but since I have this compressor on it, it kind of needs it, because if you don't do that, you kind of have this little thin choppy kick. So in here I have a glue compressor. This guy is my absolute favorite for all things drums. Literally everything drums, I use a glue compressor. And actually, for most things, unless I'm using a multiband, I pretty much just exclusively use a glue. I don't really use the regular old stock Ableton compressor anymore because it's not that I don't know how to work it, it's just that I can't get the controls to sound good. Honestly, I just feel like this sounds better. So, one of the most important things about compressing the drums is that you have to have attack. Lots and lots of attack. So, what it sounds like without that is. So it's still pretty thuddy, but if you bring the attack up to 1, you got some snap. 3, even more. I settled on 10 because pretty much, I feel like that's the best balance between snap and just overblowing the levels. So the release is actually rather important as well, because what you're going to do is you're going to put the threshold way down so that this compressor gets triggered when the kick sample is at minus 24.1 dB, which is, instantly. But you want this release to hold it compressed for a good long time, because when you combine that with this long attack, what that's going to do is it's going to allow for the sample to, basically have that ridiculous snap, yet at the same time, if you use the makeup knob properly, it will also have the rest quiet enough, yet still loud enough that it doesn't just sound like a pure click. The whole thing about compression is good balance. You gotta balance it all out. So I put the ratio all the way up because I just feel like it sounds better when it's squashed. I know a lot of old mixing engineers who would roll in their graves if they heard me say that, but you know what? It's okay. I like it. It sounds good. That's all that matters. Pretty much did the same thing with the snare, except I decided on snare 47. This guy right here. An interesting thing that I did with this is I used the fade out option because I felt like when I did not, so let's just, yeah. I feel like that transient sticks out really well, but with that said, the rest of it rings a little too long, so this just is just like an addition to the compression on the end, I suppose. Just makes it a little less muddy, to be honest. So with the glue compressor on this guy is actually pretty much the same settings. It's just that the threshold and the makeup are in different places. So really, I just high attack, high release, high ratio, low threshold, high makeup. Really, that's just kind of all there is to it with the compressor. You can do this with just about any compressor. I just personally feel like the glue compressor sounds best. So another really important thing is that I have a reverb on the snare itself, and I used FabFilter Pro R, and I EQ'd it and set the all of these little guys as such. I got the brightness at 50, character at 30, distance 37.81. I kept this right where it was, kept this right where it was, put the stereo width all the way up. And because personally, what I enjoy in a really nice thick snare is that punch, and then it just spreads out into the stereo field. That's what I like to hear with a snare, especially in dubstep. So I've got this distance up pretty high so that you have some pre-delay on this reverb, yet I have the mix down and the stereo width up. I pretty much cut off everything below 600 hertz on the reverb because it just kind of muddies up the mix with this below about 600. So that's just my opinion. You can obviously set that up as needed for your particular mix, but this is just what sounded good in my mix. Basically, the whole point of this is that you just want a nice, thick, but subtle reverb on the snare. So this is what it sounds like without that reverb. Oh dear, what have I done? Ah, there we go. And then you add the reverb. Gives it that nice just fade into the distance rather than a just sudden stop. That's all there really is to the kick and snare. There is these two loops down here. That can really be done as you see fit. I chose these two. Just I made the entire drop without these hi-hats, so basically it sounded like this. You know, not awful, but you know, you add these in and you've got, it's kind of just fills up the empty space in the 5 to 7K range and keeps the whole thing moving pretty much. So this guy here is just a regular old crash at the beginning, ride hi-hats. I usually will find my own samples and build my own pattern, but when I started this, I was kind of feeling lazy, and honestly, I'm a freaking slut for cymatics, so I just used a loop from Terror again. You know, you'll find that I do that a lot, but you know, hey, it fucking sounds good, so props to cymatics, I suppose. We have just eighth note hi-hats and syncopated half note ride, I believe. Yeah, looks like syncopated half note ride plus a just nice eighth note hi-hats. You know, you can build that for yourself, you can find your own loop, you know, just do whatever sounds good for the song you're trying to make. That's just what I used for this. Fills up the high end a little bit. This, however, is this one is mainly used for this little part right here. And I did that because when you put that in there, it accents the snare. Oh boy. That little just swoosh right before the snare. I honestly have always thought that sounded good, and I've pretty much put that in almost every track I've ever made. However, you know, if you don't like that, this second loop is unnecessary. That's pretty much the only reason this one is in here. But when you have all of that put together, by the way, all of this guy is running through a track I have called MFX, standing for Master Effects, which is literally just these two filters that I use for this part. In here, you can see you've got these guys. Kind of this filter here is a low pass. You can see it moving around like that. This high pass down here, I'll go into why I'm doing that later. Just know that the hi-hats are going through that channel. So that's all I've got on the drums. Psych! Let's look at this. So we got this nice fill here. That's right before the drop, so that's just kind of more of build-up. That part right there is just to fill up some space and add a little transition. However, as I go forward, it actually pretty much does the same thing everywhere in the song, but right here I just have it as these 3 tom hits rather than, what, 8? That is a space filler. Dear God in heaven. Okay. I'm putting it up to you, Internet, to provide me with a picture of a face spiller, whatever the fuck that is. So here it sounds like this. And without it, you have this. Still sounds good. I just thought it sounded better with this little transition point, I guess. Kind of inspired by Diamond Eyes with his track, Stay With Me. You might notice that in the beginning of his drop he has the exact same fill. Not the exact same fill, but basically the same idea. So that's where I got the idea for this. However, I also compressed the living shit out of these pretty much the same settings, just the release is much slower because you want it to be ready to compress the transient in like a 30-second of a. So I also have this on there because I thought they muddied up the mix if I didn't. So all up to you with what sounds good in the mix. That's just what I did. I try to not have frequencies conflict with each other, for lack of a better description. So that's all I have in the drums. I have these guys in the beginning, which are compressed pretty much the same way, as a matter of fact, but just less intense drum samples for the intro, kind of keep it chill until the drop hits. The whole thing's running through that MFX again for the high and low pass in the intro. I'll once again explain why that's there in another video, but these guys are just kind of a nice little softer drum set, I guess. I guess it amounts to being another drum set in the beginning of the song. So that's how that sounds. That's, I guess I'll just show you the samples that I'm using for that. I'm using Cymatics Kick 4 from Savage Drums for Trap. I'm using this Dry Snare 2 from Savage Drums for Trap. As you can see, it's compressed as all shit. However, the attack is 3 on this one instead of 10 because the sample itself really isn't that long, and I wanted more of a pop rather than a smack. So again, I have another reverb on this one, designed for that snare. I find that putting snares through a master reverb, while it saves CPU, does not save your mix. So, it's just choose the lesser evil, I suppose, whichever that happens to be for you. So, that's all I got on drums. I know I've said that like 6 times, but this time I'm actually done. I will create another series of videos to explain the rest of this track, but for now that's all I got. Enjoy, and stay tuned for the next video. Thank you very much.